Broadcasting from our subterranean studios in beautiful Paradise Valley, Pennsylvania, it's Business and Brain Tumor Talk, a unique show with topics to educate, inspire, and implement. Without further ado, here's your host, Rick Franzo.
That's right from our subterranean studios. This is Business and Brain Tumor Talk. I'm your host, Rick Franzo, and with us today is Vince Maffeo, a good friend of mine. He's in California. Vince is the owner, operator, CEO, chief bottle washer. I don't know whatever. There's so many different things of Comfort Keepers and of TruBlue Handyman Services. Welcome, Vince.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I appreciate being on.
No, I appreciate you being here for sure. So talk about your locations a little bit, because your area is vast, and I didn't even go over all the areas because I didn't want to mess it up.
No, I understand. It is a big area. So if you think about the Central Valley of California, from Sacramento, which is the state capital, down to Modesto, which is about 80 miles south of there, that is my area for Comfort Keepers. So we provide non-medical in-home care for seniors in the Sacramento area all the way down to Modesto. And then we've been doing that since 2002. Then last year, I decided to launch a companion business to Comfort Keepers, and that's how TruBlue came about, which, like Comfort Keepers, is a national franchise. And so the TruBlue Handyman business provides home modifications, things like grab bars, widening doorways, building ramps for our clients. So we feel it's a natural fit for our senior clients that want to stay in their own home, but may need some modification to those homes in order to stay there.
That is really great, and great strategy. Today we're going to be talking a bit about strategy, not just about the business, but things that you do to set your business apart from others. So maybe it's the marketing, maybe it's what your business model is, and how your team is interacting with each other over such a large area. But the first thing I'd like to ask is, why franchising? Why multi-franchises? And how did you get into it?
I think franchising is the best way to build a business quickly, because you get to use an established playbook that others have built in order to launch your own business. So you don't feel like you have to recreate the wheel over and over again. And so that is really the main thing that drew me to it, from the standpoint of the fact that there was an existing business model that already existed, that we were able to kind of push play on and then customize it for our own market. It's not easy by any stretch, but the fact is that you have support systems, you have marketing, you have branding, those types of things ready to go. And then it's a matter of building out your own local business. In terms of how I got into it, it's actually an interesting story. My previous career was in the cable TV industry. And so I worked for a lot of the major companies in cable, such as Cox Communications, Comcast, an old company called TCI, which doesn't exist any longer and is now actually part of Comcast. But I was working for Cox Communications in Tucson, Arizona, and I had a coworker of mine who had an operations position, which was a great job. He told me one day he had to quit the job. I said, why? He said, because I have this other business on the side doing home care for seniors as a Comfort Keepers franchisee, and the business is growing so much that I need to quit my job to go tend to this business. So it's fantastic. So when he told me more about the job, about his company, I realized this would be a good thing for my father to start. And so I immediately called him. He was living in El Dorado Hills, California at the time, just outside Sacramento. And I said, Dad, you ought to look into this Comfort Keepers thing, because I think it could be really good for you. He was 63 at the time. He was kind of in between careers. And I thought this would be a good thing for him to do. So the more he looked into it, the more he loved it. He started it in 2002. And then it grew so much that, similarly to my friend Troy in Tucson, I ended up quitting my job to come up to Northern California to help him run it. And that was 2008. And that was a good thing because, 6 years later, my dad passed away. And so I was able to, spend that extra time with him that I would not have had if I was out somewhere else pursuing my career. So from a personal and a business perspective, it's been pretty great. And I think that, my dad now 10 years later would be pretty proud of what we've done. And especially the fact that we've now launched a different brand that's a companion brand to the original franchise that he started 22 years ago.
That's an amazing story. Here's the big takeaway that I have on it is your dad was 63 when he began the franchise.
Yeah.
Right. And so usually people are in the wind down phase of their careers and, they're looking for that smooth transition to retirement or whatever it looks like. And he started a whole new business venture, which is totally impressive.
Well, it is. And obviously, we did not know that he was only going to live another 11 years, which was unfortunate. But yeah, I mean, he had always been entrepreneurial. He had tech jobs in the past, living and working in Silicon Valley. He had actually had his own business in the early 80s doing staffing and executive placement. So he always had kind of that entrepreneurial bug. And interesting about being in the later age, we kind of had a little bit of a joke, a running joke around the office, which was that we were never going to hire caregivers that were older than my dad. And so, we said, again, you can't possibly have anybody that's older, like, a 64, 65-year-old caregiver taking care of somebody that, is maybe 10, 15 years older. But, the way that it works now with the shifting demographics, we have plenty of caregivers now who are in their 60s.
It kind of leads into another question. How do you see the demographics going? Is it there is a greater population that is in that sphere or that space of needing maybe more of the care, or do you find quite the opposite? And I'm not talking about national. I'm just talking about maybe in your area.
Well, I think what happens in my area is also national as well, because it's a demographic trend that I would consider almost a crisis, that people may not be aware of what's actually happening, or it's happening so pervasively that people are living it without really realizing what is going on. But the fact of the matter is that starting in 2011, we had the first baby boomer that turned 65. So if you think about the baby boomer generation between being born between 46 and 1964, that's 18 years of a population boom. And so the oldest one of them, the ones born in 1946, turned 65 in 2011. And now there are anywhere between 10 and 12,000 people per day turning 65. And so If you think about as we march through that time period, but here's where it gets even crazier. The average client that I have right now today, let me back up. So that person who was 65 in 2011 is now what, 77, I guess, if my math is correct, somewhere in that neighborhood. Yeah. So, they're obviously much older now than they were in 2011, but our average client in Comfort Keepers right now is about 83 years old. So as busy as we are and how much we've grown, the oldest baby boomer still has not reached the average age of my clientele. If you think about that, they would still have 6 more years to go before they became the average age of my current client today. And then you have 18 years of people turning that age, 10,000 people a day for the next 18 years.
Incredible. I'm kind of blown away by that statistic. And, we have TruBlue as well. So TruBlue is a handyman franchise that helps seniors. One of the things that they do is help seniors be able to stay in their homes safely, right? And so, great strategy to get a companion franchise to complement the caring transitions, the Comfort Keepers franchise. And so with that being said, do you find that more people are trying to stay in their homes longer, and maybe that's the area of opportunity?
Well, staying in their homes is the objective. Nobody wants to move out. Nobody wants to live in what we call a board care or an assisted living facility, maybe perhaps an independent living community where you've got 100 other seniors that are living with you in more of an apartment townhouse type situation. Those places are actually pretty cool. But by and large, people do want to stay in their homes. They're comfortable there. They want to make it work for them. They've lived there for decades at a time. But at some point, their physical limitations don't allow them to do that anymore. And that's where we come in. It can be something as simple as grab bars in the bathroom to help them on and off the toilet. It could be widening a doorway so that a wheelchair ramp could fit through. There can be something even more pervasive than that, such as a stairway lift to get them from the first floor to the second floor. Those types of things are the things that we focus on to try to get people, enable people to stay in their homes.
Let's talk about that for a second, people staying in their homes. And so when somebody is looking for the Comfort Keepers and the TruBlue, it's that two-pronged approach. So they will have somebody from Comfort Keepers come in and assess, what their needs are and how often they're going to need care and what type of care that they need. But also they're going to be that second aspect of it, where there's going to be somebody that's going to come in and do a safety assessment to make sure that their house is not only safe for them, but safe for the caregivers who are coming in, correct?
What you just described is the one thing that sets us apart from any other agency that I'm aware of, both in my local markets plus nationally, is that we take care of not only the client, but also the home in which they live. And that is a big differentiating factor, not only for our clients when we can explain it to them like that, but also for those sources that refer clients to us, such as hospitals, skilled nursing facilities, places like that where people are being discharged back into the home. The discharge planners and social workers want to know that their patients are going home to a safe environment. And so it's not just a matter of, do you have a caregiver that can take care of activities of daily living for mom or dad? It's also, what does the home look like? Is it safe for them? Can they get around the home? Can they get to the bedroom, the bathroom, those types of places? Those things are very, very important for a social worker or a discharge planner to know prior to them releasing somebody from the hospital.
That is absolutely critical for the family as well of the person that is needing the care, because a lot of times, they don't know what to do. So the rehab facility or the hospital, they're the ones that are coordinating it. Yes. And you just kind of said that, that's what sets you apart. But when people come in, explain the approach when they are coming in. What does that look like from start to finish when they're looking for in-home care from Comfort Keepers and from TruBlue?
Well, it almost always starts with an adult child. And so it's very rarely the client themselves that are calling. Right? We're not getting calls from 80-year-old people. We're getting calls from their 50-year-old daughter. It's almost always the daughter. And if there's no sons in the family, it's the daughter-in-law. And so it's almost exclusively a female domain that's been tasked with trying to take care of mom or dad. And it could be something where it is like a hospital discharge situation, or it could be more of a situation where the family member, the adult daughter, needs to work and has a career of her own, but needs to make sure that somebody is taking care of mom or dad while he or she is at work. So it's really that type of approach. So all of our marketing is focused on reaching the adult children. And so once you tap into what it is that the adult child is looking for, like I said, it could be rehabbing from an injury. It could be a work situation where you need to be away from home for extended periods of time. That gives us an insight into how we do our home assessment. And then at that point, we really just look at what the client's routine is like. What time do you get up? What time do you go to sleep? What time do you eat? What time do you shower? What time do you bathe? What type of activities do you do? Do you go to church? Do you have social groups that you attend to? Where can we help you with those things? And so then we break the service into two different types of categories. One is companion care, and the other is personal care. So companion care is things that we do around the house, such as cooking meals, doing light housekeeping. It could be spending time with somebody, reading, doing puzzles, games, those types of things. And then there's personal care, which is about 80% of our clients need help with what we call activities of daily living. That's grooming, bathing, transferring, toileting, eating, those types of things. There are many, many clients who need help with one or more of those activities of daily living, and that's what they bring us in for. So when you combine those two things together, that creates a plan of care for a client that determines how many hours a week we are with that client. And for us, it could be a minimum of 8 hours a week, all the way up to 24/7. We have several clients where we have caregivers that are around the clock with that.
That is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it's over 20 plus years we've established that baseline of how to do this, and we know pretty quickly going into a client's home, what type of care that they're going to need just by simply asking these questions and getting the family to tell us. Sometimes it's hard to get the answer from a senior because they're resistant to the care. The adult daughter may be pushing the care. The senior may be saying, let me put on the brakes. But, at some point there's a meeting of the minds and we're able to come together. And then on the TruBlue side, we have a separate estimator that will come in. The estimators that we have all have decades and decades of experience. They're trained in looking for items that could potentially be in disrepair in a client's home that could either cause, an immediate safety hazard like, tripping or falling, or something that is more dangerous like electrical issues. So we're very skilled at looking at those things, or things that could be failing now that are small problems now, but could be bigger problems later, like a leaky roof, or something like that can be caught now and not have to turn into a big problem later.
So it's really customized to the individual person that you're meeting with. So there isn't really one size fits all. There is an overlying plan, but really you're customing it to that individual, right?
Yeah, most definitely. That's what it's all about, is getting to know the client and developing a relationship with that client. And that is actually what happens. For the most part, it is a relationship business. It's not necessarily transactional. We're not really in and out. It's something where we're part of that client's family, for better or for worse. We're part of that client's family. And that's difficult for a caregiver to do, because we train our caregivers, don't get involved in the client's personal life. You're there to do a job. But if you do get involved, make sure that it's one way. You don't share your issues with the client. The client has enough to worry about. If you've got an issue as a caregiver with, your family, or, your vehicle just broke down or something, the client doesn't want to hear that. And so we train that we have to make sure that we're tending to the client at all times.
I really like what you said about building relationships. And from what I've seen, you have exactly the team to do that. So let's talk a little bit about your team, if you don't mind, from the sales team to the operations team to the schedulers to the caregivers themselves.
Well, since day one, with my dad, he always had a sales focus, as well as myself. It's always been about what can we do to attract clients to our business. And that's really the main focus that we put on it. And so we have a team of salespeople. It's interesting. In our industry, we tend to call them marketers. But as a former corporate guy, I know that sales and marketing are two different things. So I always cringe when I hear people say, well, I'm hiring a marketer. Well, not really. You're hiring a salesperson. Sales is a subset of marketing, but it should not, it's not the end all be all in terms of how to find clients. But sales is our main focus on how we do that, and that's building relationships with discharge planners, social workers, case managers, those types of people at hospitals. They are by far the ones that exert the most influence over a client needing and recommending home care services. So that time is well spent on getting in with them. And what's interesting is in the early days, we would call it muffin marketing, where it would be just as easy as bringing in donuts and pastries to a floor staff at a hospital and saying, hey, Comfort Keepers is here. But things have changed so much now, and especially since COVID, the access to the hospitals is not as good as what it used to be. So we have to be more creative about how we get in and get to be seen. An example of that is we have a Comfort Keepers franchisee in Chicago, Anna Holden, who developed this incredible series for CEUs, continuing education units. And the idea is she found several speakers who are willing to give talks and seminars on topics where nurses can earn their CEU credits. And so she promoted that to other Comfort Keepers franchisees. So there's about 30 of us that promote her CEU series. And then we give that to our case managers and discharge planners saying, hey, if you're interested in this topic, come log on, for a couple of, several hours next month or whatever it happens to be, and earn CEUs for learning about dementia or whatever the topic happens to be. So that's a way where we are continuing to show the community that we're supportive of their education and their continuing advancement in their career, which is a lot different than muffin marketing, if you think about it.
It's night and day for sure. No, that's actually that's really brilliant. That's really great. Talk about, if you don't mind, the schedulers and the caregivers for a moment. The schedulers, really, that's their first point of contact with Comfort Keepers, right? And TruBlue.
Well, for the most part, in terms of where it matches the caregiver and the client together. So at that point, they've been talking to our salespeople, who we also call them client care managers. When they go into a client's home to do that assessment that we talked about, the resulting plan of care gets turned over to the scheduler. Then the scheduler is responsible for matching the caregiver with what the client wants. So you could have a client that says, "Okay, I want a quiet and reserved caregiver. I want someone who's okay with cats, who doesn't mind if I smoke, or whatever the criteria happens to be." And so we'll look at our database and we will match up that caregiver with that client. Hopefully, it's a good fit. Most of the time, it is. Sometimes it's not. And if it's not, that's okay. We try again and we swap out with a different caregiver. But our schedulers are really the most important people on the team from the standpoint of they are constantly playing with the schedule. It's like a jigsaw puzzle to that, because you're trying to fit in the times and days that a client is needing service with the times and days that a caregiver is available, either in terms of their own schedule or along the lines of what other clients they may be taking care of. So you could have a client that needs service from 8 o'clock until noon, and you've got another client that needs service from noon until 4. And so you say, well, that's interesting. I see a caregiver that could do both, but it's not physically possible to be in both places at the same time. So we would say to the other client, are you okay if we started at 1 instead of 12? The client will say, yeah. Okay, in that case, now you can keep that caregiver occupied the entire day, and you can make 2 clients happy with one phone call. So they're doing that multiple times a day.
Yeah, and they've got to be very practiced and very good at it, doing it so many times and the repetition and everything else, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really great. How do you find that TruBlue is really that perfect of a match, besides the in-home safety assessments and helping seniors, stay in their homes longer? Are there any other clients that TruBlue is looking to reach?
Well, I mean, it's a vast market, because the average home has 22 things that are wrong with it that need to be repaired or replaced. And so it's not just seniors, but it's anybody who's a homeowner, a busy professional. So there are other clients that we take care of. For example, people who shop at home improvement stores such as Home Depot, they may buy something and then need help installing it. So that's something that we help them with as well. And that is a great source for the business. But overall, it lends itself to the relationship aspect of the business that we started with Comfort Keepers. It hasn't always been smooth, but the idea is that we want to get our team at Comfort Keepers comfortable with referring a potential client to the handyman business by positioning it as a natural fit between the two companies. And so part of the challenge for me has been to try to integrate the two together. And so we've learned a lot over the last year, but I think we're finally hitting on something that enables us to be able to talk with some authority about why a client should use both services, and the fact that doing business with both companies is the way that we do business. It's not like, well, the handyman business is they and Comfort Keepers is us, or if I'm talking about it from the handyman side, is they and Comfort Keeper is us and Comfort Keepers is they. No, we are all one company together, and that's what we're trying to build. And that's been part of the strategy, is to leverage that relationship on both sides.
So no, that's a good way to describe it. So when we want to keep a senior or somebody in their home, and the accountability, so we'll use dryer vents as an example.
Mm-hmm.
They need to be cleaned out every so often. So how do we do that? You said 22 things are wrong in the average person's home. I'm going to look around here. I don't see that many, but maybe I need to have a home assessment done here for sure. So how do you manage that? Do you have any kind of programs that have you come in every so often and see if there's things that need maintenance? I know, like when I'm coaching HVAC companies, for example, they will do a spring and a fall assessment. So they'll come in and, they'll do a check to make sure to be proactive, not reactive on the systems that they do, plumbers as well. Does TruBlue do anything like that?
Well, the good news is yes. And the good news also is that this is one of the benefits of being part of a franchise system, is that we have launched nationally Home Ally Maintenance Program, which does exactly what you talk about. It's a subscription service that has us go in quarterly to a client's home and inspect different things at different times. So like, for example, to use your dryer vent example, maybe 2 times a year, we would check that for clogs and we would clear it if that were the case. There are other things, seasonalities, such as, cleaning leaves out of a gutter, things like that, which would not necessarily be an issue during certain times of the year, but would be at other times. And so there's a laundry list of tasks that we would perform in the spring, summer, fall, and winter that a client would get those services. And then if we see anything that could potentially be a problem, we're prescriptive in nature by saying, hey, this is something you may want to pay attention to. I'd be happy to write up an estimate for what it would take to take care of it right now. But that's really the main aspect of it right there. And if you think about subscription services in other industries, such as, for example, pest control, many of us are used to having a pest control company come to our house quarterly to spray, to take down cobwebs, to look for signs of rodents, things like that. If you think about what Jiffy Lube did in the car industry many, many years ago, you would go in for an oil change, but there were other things that needed to be done. Changing your wipers out, or looking at brake fluid or AC fluid, any of those types of things that would need to be changed on a regular basis. You had that Jiffy Lube person that was looking under the car and wrote up things and said, here are other things that we would recommend you do. It's a similar concept. And it's not to say that we're trying to oversell anybody, but we're trying to be prescriptive in nature to be able to alert homeowners when a potentially big problem could arise if you don't take care of something now.
Seems like it would be less expensive and I like the term you use, prescriptive, to really see things proactively than to do it a la carte or to just handle emergencies and, deal with the chaos that ensues. So it seems like it would save money.
Well, I think so. But the challenge from a business standpoint is that we feel like we're inventing a new category. We don't think anybody else is doing this. And so we have our franchise people that are looking to see who else is offering something like this and nobody else is. So from a strategy perspective, how do you create a category that doesn't exist right now? How do you create demand for it? How do you create interest? How do you create awareness for it? And that's what we're going through right now. But we feel like we're on the ground floor of this because the people that we've talked to from a referring source standpoint love what we're doing. I know our president, Sean, has been talking to home improvement stores about doing these types of things and offering them in store. Okay. I personally am talking with a local referral source that wants us to come in and do a presentation about the home maintenance program for them, for all of the senior clients that they take care of. These are people that are on Medicare. And so home improvement items are paid for under this program by Medicare. And so we've already gotten about 5 or 6 grab bar orders from them. And so we started talking to them about Home Ally maintenance, and they have invited us in to go do a presentation next month, thinking that they may want to offer this to all of their clients. So that's the way we're going to win, is by having these conversations at the ground level. But it's tough to create an entirely new category of business, but I'm confident we'll get it done.
Yeah, definitely. I'm confident as well. It's changing the mindsets. So one final question for you, and it's about entrepreneurship. So, you had mentioned entrepreneurship at the beginning and, how a franchise is the perfect way to, start quicker. It's not easy, but to not reinvent the wheel, right? So yeah. What strategy would you have for somebody, not necessarily new, but, on any part of the spectrum of they've been in the business for a while? What is a strategy, not a tip or a trick or a hack or anything, but what would you say is one of the things that has driven you for over 2 decades to be successful?
It's key performance indicators, KPIs. You have to know what numbers drive your business. And until you know that, you don't truly know how successful you're going to be. And it's also going to take a while to figure out what those KPIs are. For all these years, I know what KPIs drive my senior care business. I can look at my numbers on a weekly basis, daily basis, and I'll know whether we're doing well or not based upon what my dashboard says. For the TruBlue business, it's the same thing. It took me a little while to figure out what the drivers of the business were. But once I figured it out, we started rolling a little bit more. So it unequivocally is you have to know your numbers. You need to know what drives the business through which KPIs you track.
Critical. I love it. If somebody wanted to get a hold of Comfort Keepers or TruBlue, how would they do that?
Well, I think the best way to do it is our websites, which are comfortkeepers.com. And then for TruBlue, it's trueblueally.com. So it's kind of interesting. So we look at ourselves as a home ally. We're your friend, we're your ally. And so TruBlue is spelled TRU. So it's TRU, the color blue, and then ally, ALLY.com. And you'd be able to find us or any other Comfort Keepers or TruBlue location via our website.
I appreciate that. Vince, I can't thank you enough for being here. You're a fantastic guy. You have an amazing team. Your company culture is second to none. And you definitely know what you're talking about. So if you're watching this and you have somebody that needs some personal care, or you need some handyman services, or you just want to get some real good strategy, then call Vince because he's your guy. Thank you so much, Vince, for being here. We appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Rick. Appreciate it.
Thank you. This has been Brain Tumor Talk, Business and Brain Tumor Talk. And thank you so much for being here, and have a great day, everybody.